Welcome to Prophecy Countdown with author and pastor Kenneth Baer. Join us every week for the latest updates on what the Bible has to say about the events, the characters, and prophetic signs of the return of Jesus Christ and His coming kingdom. Make sure you not only subscribe, but like your favorite episodes and share it with your friends. Now, on with the broadcast.
Welcome to Prophecy Countdown. I'm Pastor Ken. And welcome to today's update. Today's message is number 445, The Visible Return of Jesus Christ. On Wednesdays, our prophecy updates premiere at 11 a.m. on multiple audio and visual channels. And then on Sundays, our prophecy updates premiere at 1 p.m. We welcome your comments, your questions, and any ideas you may have for future episodes. Our Gmail address is prophecycountdownpodcast@gmail.com, and I respond to each one of those inquiries personally. So let's get into today's teaching, number 445, The Visible Return of Jesus Christ. So as we begin this update on Prophecy Countdown Podcast, we'll be continuing the discussion in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24 as Jesus continues to answer questions about His second coming. I want to begin, however, talking about a common experience we all share, especially living in the Sunshine State. We live in Florida, and Florida has earned the title of the lightning capital of the world, and I can tell you living here, it's for good reason. It's a phenomenon that mesmerizes us. It really does. It illuminates the sky. Lightning has brilliant flashes, a powerful thunder that follows it. There's something awe-inspiring about a lightning storm. I think that's true for young and old alike. It's unpredictable, yet it's captivating. We can't help but gaze in wonder as streaks of lightning flash across the sky. And isn't it true? Many of us could say that we've woken up in the middle of the night because of a sudden bolt of lightning. It wakes us even from a deep sleep. It serves as a powerful reminder of nature's might. People will talk about how they see the flashes illuminating their rooms or how the sound reverberates in their homes. Lightning is visible. And I think because it's visible and it has this loud boom with it, it captures our attention. It demands our focus. It stirs something deep within us. Now, this concept of visibility, of the visible lightning, is incredibly significant, especially when we consider the words of Jesus today in our verses in Matthew chapter 24, verses 26 through 28. Jesus references lightning in relationship to His second coming. Just as we cannot ignore a storm that lights up the night sky, so too the return of Jesus Christ will be unmistakable, and it will be visible to all. So as we dive deeper in today's topic, and again, I call it the visible return of Jesus Christ, we'll explore how this parallels the lightning and Christ's return and how they both illuminate the certainty of Jesus' second coming. So let's take a look at the scripture for today, and I'm going to include 3 verses we actually talked about last week. And so we'll start at verse 23 in chapter 24 of Matthew. Jesus says, "Then if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Christ,' or 'There,' do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. Therefore, if they say to you, 'Look, he's in the desert,' do not go out. Or 'Look, he's in the inner room,' do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together." Now, I included the previous verses 23 through 25, because just last week we took a look at what Jesus had to say about false Christs and the false prophet. And remember, we spent some time talking about the signs and wonders that will accompany the deception of the end times. Notice that in these verses, Jesus warns us about the presence of false Christs and the temptation to go look for him. Jesus says, look, he's in the desert. Do not go out. Or look, he's in the inner room. Do not believe it. So this is a reminder. It's a cautionary note that Jesus says. It calls for discernment in an age that's actually filled with confusion and deception. So as we move on to verses 23 through 26, Jesus is clarifying this essential truth. When he returns, there will be no mistaking it. No mistaking it. He uses this powerful imagery of lightning flashing in the sky to illustrate the unmistakable nature of his second coming. Just as lightning lights up the darkness and can be seen for miles in every direction, so too the return of Christ will be evident to all. He says it will be as clear as the distance is from the east to the west, an immeasurable expanse that signifies how truly visible this second coming, this event will be. This serves as a profound assurance for us. The second coming of Christ will not be secretive, nor will it be whispered about in hushed corners. It will be global. It'll be a revelation that's unmistakable and known to everyone. And when lightning strikes, often people's hearts are filled with fear as a reminder of nature's power. Yet for the believer, the second coming of Christ is actually far different. It's a moment of welcome anticipation. In that day, Israel will be fully restored as a nation. The boundaries of the promised land, as foretold, will extend from the Euphrates River all the way to the Nile River. This encompasses a territory God originally designated for his people that is far beyond the present borders of modern-day Israel. The expansive promise is a testament to God's faithfulness and his sovereignty over his covenant with the nation of Israel. Moreover, the prophecies declare that all the nations will flock to Jerusalem to hear of the Lord. Scriptures such as Isaiah chapter 2 speak of a time when the mountain of the Lord's house will be established on the highest mountain, and all nations will stream to it, longing to learn its ways. This global pilgrimage of Jerusalem symbolizes a unifying moment in history where the world recognized the sovereignty of Jesus Christ as Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Now, the Bible describes a millennial period, a period of 1,000 years, where Jesus will establish his kingdom on earth, and he reigns in righteousness, and there will be peace. The saints, those who have been faithfully following Christ, will reign alongside him, fulfilling the promise of co-reigning with the Lord. This time will be marked by justice, by prosperity, and spiritual fulfillments. All of the prophecies of the Old Testament come to fruition, demonstrating the heart of God for his people. Now, there are many that tremble at the thought of the Lord's return, but we who have placed our trust in him should embrace it with open arms, filled with joyful expectations. So let me spend a couple of minutes on what we encounter today, which is a common misunderstanding. Perhaps you've heard the term secret rapture. And you've heard some mention of this secret rapture, and it's actually, what you're hearing is a pejorative. It's a negative way of looking at what we know as the rapture of the church, as many don't embrace what we know as as true prophecy and what we know as the blessed hope. Some assert this idea because they approach verses like 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and 1 Corinthians chapter 15 that speak specifically about the rapture of the church, and they embrace it as a non-literal interpretation. However, again, this is what happens, is that a careful reading of these passages reveals a profound distinction between what Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 15 and 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and what the book of Revelation describes as the second coming of Jesus Christ. You see, first we will have the rapture, the coming of Jesus Christ in the clouds for his church. And then at the end of the tribulation, we have Jesus coming, descending to heaven, landing at the Mount of Olives. Now, in the rapture, articulated in 1 Thessalonians and 1 Corinthians, Christ comes for his saints, meeting them in the air. This moment is a gathering of all believers, those who have died in Christ, which are resurrected first, and then we which are alive are to be caught up together. That word, by the way, is harpazo, and it's translated to be caught up to be with him. This event is intimate. It's personal. It's designated for his church, the bride of Christ. Conversely, the return of Jesus to the earth, mentioned in the verses today where Jesus talks about lightning traveling from the east to the west, and also in the book of Revelation, is a dramatically different event. In the second coming, the second event, Christ descends with his saints to establish his kingdom, and that happens on the Mount of Olives in Israel, bringing judgment and restoration to the world. He comes with authority and with great power, visibly impacting the earth and all of its inhabitants. Now, understanding these distinct events help us clarify the prophetic timeline that God has given us through prophecy. The 7 years of tribulation that follow the rapture of the church aren't meant for the church, aren't meant for the present-day believers. Instead, they serve the purpose of God bringing salvation to the Jewish nation. In Daniel chapter 9, God promises 70 weeks. Now, we've gone into that study before. 70 weeks is actually 70 weeks of years, meaning 490 years, and it has all special events associated with Israel. Now, interestingly, and you can do the study on this, the final 7 years of this timeline have been put on hold. They're waited. This hold period is the age of grace. It's the age of the church. It's a period characterized by God's mercy and the expansion of the gospel to every nation. That's what the Great Commission was all about, is taking the gospel to all of the nations during the age of grace, so that ultimately God's kingdom will include many, many Gentiles. This great age of grace will come at an end with the rapture of the church, after which God will resume his plan for Israel during the 7 years of the tribulation. Now, as we wrap up our discussion on this visible return of Jesus Christ today, it's essential to recognize the profound implications of his coming. Just as he ascended into heaven with great majesty, the promise remains that he will return in the same manner. That's actually what it says in Acts chapter 1. Acts chapter 1, the angel is there, and the angel sees the disciples gazing into heaven. And the angelic messengers assured them that Jesus would indeed come back visibly, returning in glory in the same way that they saw him ascending. I want to finish up by looking at this very last verse, verse 28. A lot of people pass over it, and they have difficulty with it. I'll read it for you. It says, "For wherever the carcass is, there will be the eagles, and they will be gathered together." Now, at first glance, this verse seems somewhat out of place amidst the powerful themes of the second coming and the visible return of Jesus Christ as lightning. However, upon closer examination, it actually reveals a deeper and actually a simple meaning. When we compare this verse 28 with Ezekiel chapter 37, we see a striking parallel. In Ezekiel's prophetic vision, the dry bones are gathered together in a valley. Essentially, they are dry, they are lifeless, they are scattered, and they represent, according to the angel, the house of Israel. However, when the prophet spoke as commanded by God, those bones were infused with life. This imagery conveys a powerful message of restoration and the revival of Israel. In essence, verse 28, this verse on the wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered, is a stark reminder that the events and the consequences that follow Jesus' return is exactly this. It's the restoration of Israel. It denotes a sense of inevitability concerning significant events that are sure to follow the coming of the Lord. You see, my friends, the second coming of Jesus Christ is not the end. It is, however, the fulfillment. After Jesus' second coming, Jesus will reign for 1,000 years. And this promise of his coming reminds us to be aware of our own spiritual condition. It's urging us. Anytime we think about the second coming, it should urge us to reflect on our readiness for his return and the ultimate transformation it will bring to the earth. Jesus is coming, my friends. Jesus said his coming will be like lightning that lights up the eastern sky. It's time. It is time to get ready.
Nearly every day, it's common to see, read, or hear something about the end of the world, the apocalypse, or end times. Author and pastor Kenneth Baer's The Apocalypse and Coming Kingdom zooms in and breaks down biblical prophecy as it relates to Jesus' imminent return and the coming 7-year period, including the Great Tribulation. Available in both paperback and Kindle versions. Get your copy on Amazon or at Barnes & Noble and select Christian bookstores. The title again is The Apocalypse and Coming Kingdom. You can also find it listed by author Kenneth Baer. Get your copy today.